Good evening. Colonel William Moseley, I believe he's not with us today. Sergeant Major Felton Head, thank you for inviting me. It's a great honor for me to stand here in front of people that wake up every morning asking themselves what they can do for their country and not what their country can do for them. The US Army played such an important role liberating Europe from the Nazi regime. I believe I can say on behalf of all Jewish people, thank you. Dear friends, we are here today to commemorate the Holocaust, to remember all the innocent lives that perished in the Shoah under the Nazi regime. The wisest of men, as he was called, King Solomon, he said, there is a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. In Jewish tradition, when somebody passes away, we weep and we mourn, but only for a fixed period of time. Then we have to rebuild. We go back to work, we pick up the pieces, and we rebuild our lives. That does not mean that we forget the person. He's not just buried and forgotten. Every year, in the anniversary of his passing, we remember him. How do we remember him? We do good deeds, charitable works. We give of our own time in memory of the deceased, so as to transform the pain of the loss into solid and positive action. This is what we do for one person. But how should we act when in such cases as the Shoah, that millions of innocent souls perished? The Holocaust tempts us to let go and to mourn forever. But perhaps we can take the example of the survivors of the Shoah, who after they went through such pain and they received so much evil from the world, they were able to rebuild. They continued their lives, but also they became for us beacons of hope. They brought so much education, so much peace, tolerance to the world. Not as is done, unfortunately, in many radical groups around the world, even today, that their philosophy is, I had it tough, I will pass it on to someone else. I will do evil as was done to me. But the idea is to absorb those tough moments of life and to know how to transform them into light, into positiveness. You all know that the world benefited a lot from people who left the comfort of their lives to benefit the world, to bring humanity a step further in politics, in medicine, in science, in many fields. And at the same time, we suffered a lot of damage from people who were just too busy in their own little corner, and they just didn't care what's the impact in the global picture of the world, of their own decisions. We like to think, when we look at the genocide that happened in the Second World War, not so long ago, we like to think that perhaps all German soldiers were so permeated with hate, and therefore such genocide was possible. But indeed, as Elie Wiesel said, he himself a Shoah survivor, that indifference was the greatest cause, the thing that permitted that system, that evil system, to run smoothly with no obstacles. one soldier would say, listen, my task was just to make sure that people were in the wagon. I have nothing to do with the rest. Another one would say, my task was just to lock the door. That's all I had to do. I have nothing to do with the rest. I had to just drive the train. Yes, they were soldiers and they had to follow orders, but philosophically, every human being needs to connect in certain part of his mind to the general picture, to have awareness of what will be the influence of his decisions in the world, in the general world. Sometimes we think that our actions are too small to influence and to change things in the world, but this is not true. Allow me to bring you a small example. There's a hungry person going through a very tough time, and the only thing he has in his hand is a small crust of bread. But despite where he finds himself in this great system, he still can think freely and hope for a world where there will be no more hunger, and think how the world can change once. This person cannot change the system. The world doesn't allow him to do anything now. His decisions, his opinion almost doesn't even count. But he takes this small crust of bread and he gives a small piece to his neighbor next to him, to his hungry neighbor. And yes, it's true, this is a very tiny action. This will not change the world. But perhaps this is the beginning of a great process that will turn him into a great person. And believe me, you don't have to be the man of the year in Times magazines to be a great person. This person will eventually do something, and this action will go into the mind of the person who received that small piece. He will eventually do something else with his life on the same way. And yes, this can have a ripple effect and do influence the destiny of the world. So building on this model, our task is to bring understanding between cultures, to build bridges, that there should be more respect, more understanding between peoples. This definitely is what will lead us to a peaceful world. And indeed, this is why we commemorate today, is to rekindle our commitment for a better world. We all have different fronts. My job is culture. You army, you know what your job is all about. But we are all fighting for the same cause. We are all here to build a healthy society, to bring peace and light to the world. And we should definitely not rest until prosperity and peace is granted to all peoples of the world. Rabbi Lau, former chief rabbi of Israel, he himself a Shoah survivor, he said once, no child should go through what I went through as a child. So yes, we all have to be concerned what's happening to a child somewhere in Africa, somewhere in South America, every corner of the world. We will not rest until we have a peaceful world. May God bless the Army of the United States and their leaders to continue bringing hope where rages despair, relief and reconstruction in places of disaster, and freedom to those who face annihilation. Thank you very much.